Hello, if you're here for content operations in the age of artificial intelligence, you are in the right place. My name is Scott Abel, and I'll be the host of today's show with our guests, Colleen and Christopher Jones from Content Science. A few things about our webinar platform. We don't have access to your camera or your microphone, which just means that we can't see or hear you during today's show, so you don't have to worry about that. We are recording this program as we do with all the Content Wrangler webinars. About 30 minutes after the live show ends today, a on-demand recording will be made available at the same URL that you're using to watch today's live show. So just copy that URL right now if you'd like and put it in a safe place. You can come back later and revisit the recording. Of course, we'll send you an email to remind you of this in case you forget. You don't have to worry about that. Also, if you find that this topic might be interesting to somebody else that you know in the profession or in your own company, feel free to share the URL so they can see the show on demand. We, of course, do want you to ask questions. Even though we can't hear your voice, we'd like you to type a question in whenever you have one, and doing so is easy. Scroll down beneath your webinar viewing panel to the Ask a Question function, fill in the form, and send it in to me. I will queue up as many as possible and try to get Colleen and Christopher to answer them with the time that we have remaining after their presentation. There's also additional content in the attachment section. Today, you'll be able to find contact information for both of our presenters in case you'd like to reach out to them after the show and connect with them on LinkedIn, which I encourage you to do. There are also two great assets available to you down beneath your webinar viewing panel. If you scroll down there right now, you can see the two that I'm talking about. One is called the report, What Makes Content Operations Successful in the Age of AI. It's a very meaningful and a quick read. I think you find it useful. So you can click on that link and access that content. It will not boot you out of the show. It'll simply open a new tab and allow you to access that content. The second piece of content that's there that I found really valuable was an article called What is the State of Content Operations in 2025? It'll probably help you figure out where you are on the maturity scale and what's going on in the world outside of where you work, which might help you operationalize your content in the future. So I heavily recommend that you access those two pieces of content. At the end of the show, I will ask you to, well, I'm sorry, this is not the end of the show. I will ask you now to answer a polling question. Polls are super easy. One question, 5 multiple choice answers. You click on the answer that's most appropriate for you. I've launched the poll, and the question is, what maturity level best describes content operations in your organization? Our choices are chaotic, no formal content operations, mostly ad hoc. We're piloting, we're trying content operations in certain areas and functions of the organization. Or we're scaling, we're expanding formal content operations across business functions. Or we're sustaining, we're solidifying and optimizing content operations across business functions. Or we're thriving, we are sustaining while also innovating and seeing return on investment. This poll will be open for a little while, so please add your answers here. This will help the presenters better customize their answers because they'll know a little bit about your maturity level during the show. Also, at the end of the show, I will ask you to rate the quality of the information that you received today using our 1 through 5 star rating system. In which 1 is a low rating and 5 is an exceptional one. All right, without further ado, let's do a couple of quick commercials. One, I'd like you to join me if you can in the Center for Information Development Management's DITA Europe conference this year in Brussels, Belgium, February the 2nd through the 3rd. I'll be there with a variety of other technical documentation and content management specialists and consultants and practitioners, all talking about how we use the Darwin Information Typing Architecture, or DITA, to create information and develop publishing capabilities. I hope you'll join us at that conference. And if you decide that you want to, you can save 10% off the cost of registration when you use the discount code TCW at checkout. Also from the Center for Information Development Management is the Convex 2026 conference this year, or coming up in the new year. April the 13th through the 15th, we'll be convening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the Marriott City Center Hotel. This event attracts 300 or so of your peers, people who create content to help other people succeed in whatever tasks they're trying to accomplish. You will join technical writers, information architects, terminologists, content strategists, engineers, and operations specialists, all in the same building to talk about best practices, lessons learned, and to share case studies that are of value to you and your team. You can save 10% off the cost of this event as well by using the code TCW at check out. And I'd like to thank the sponsor of the Content Wrangler webinar channel, Hereto, an all-in-one content operations stack designed specifically for technical documentation teams. You can learn more about Hereto on the web at hereto.com. And we're going to hear from one of their customers at Medallia right now.
I've been in the software industry 35 years, and one of the things I love about Medallia is we make companies better. At Medallia Product Documentation Team, we have a goal, and our goal is that our documentation is the first and last place that people go to find information about our product. Product documentation is the official source of truth about what is supposed to be in the product. It has to be accurate, it has to be up to date, and it has to be accessible. Documentation, as I see it, is proactive, whereas support and knowledge centers are more reactive. Having good product documentation is key to supporting the product and to eliminating downstream costs. When a customer can self-service their own answer, it's a win for everybody. The customer gets the answer quicker, you reduce costs of support, and everybody's happy in the end.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Scott Abel. I'm the host of today's show, and with us today we have two guests, and our first guest I'm going to introduce is Colleen Jones. Colleen, can you hear us?
Yes, I sure can. Thanks so much for having me, Scott. It's great to be here.
It is good to see you again. I appreciate you being here. Who did you bring with you today?
I brought Chris Jones. He is the Vice President of Content Science and is the lead researcher and analyst for the insights that we're going to share here today. So Chris, I'll let you say hello.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here.
Hi, Chris. All right, Colleen, why don't you share your screen? I will put myself on mute, but before I do, while you're sharing your screen, I will remind audience members who might have just joined us that you can ask a question of our guests at any time today by scrolling down beneath your webinar viewing panel to the Ask a Questions function. You can click on that, fill out the little form and send them in to me. I'll queue up as many of those as possible and try to get you answers with the time that we have available on today's show. And don't forget, there's additional content located just beneath the webinar viewing panel that you can access at any time during the show, including a report called What Makes Content Operations Successful in the Age of AI, which I found really meaningful. All right, I am going to be quiet now and let our presenters take over. So Colleen and Chris, take over the stage.
Thanks so much, Scott. We're very excited to talk about our latest research and what it means for everyone here. First, we'll quickly recap the value and approach to our content ops research. Then we'll delve into some key findings for content ops maturity overall, as well as the top success factors. So success factors like vision and strategy, measurement and intelligence, and AI. We'll also discuss some new challenges many organizations are facing today and what that can mean for your content ops approach. So the value that we see in studying content ops now relates to the huge spend on AI and digital transformation happening today, as you can see on the right, huge. If your organization is making investments in modernization or transformation or AI, they're going to want to see a return on that. And we find more and more that content ops maturity is the key to getting a return or not. So this research and the related report help you and your organization clarify and prioritize your content ops approach. So Chris, could you share a bit more about the history and methodology?
Of course, Colleen. We've conducted this research since 2015, involving more than 900 participants so far. And out of this research, we formed and refined our content operations maturity model, which you can see on the right. The model ranges from 1, chaotic, a pretty ad hoc approach to content, all the way to 5, thriving, where you're sustaining content ops everywhere you need them, you're innovating, and you're seeing a return on investment. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to answer the poll about how you rate your organization's maturity, and you'll get to see how your rating compares to what we found in just a moment. In terms of the methodology, this 2025 update is based on a survey with 100 participants and interviews with 12 participants covering a range of industries and organizational functions ranging from technical documentation to marketing. We also involved executives, leaders, and individual contributors. Back to you, Colleen.
Thanks, Chris. So let's check out where things stand with content ops maturity overall. First, a quick definition. We view content operations as the behind-the-scenes work of managing content activities effectively and efficiently. Today, that often means establishing and scaling content systems with people, process, and technology. And we're seeing a promising shift towards slightly more maturity, with 40% of participants reporting that they're at level 3 and 25 participants reporting at level 4, which is a big increase from only 5% in 2023. So you can compare where you rated your organization to what we're seeing here. We also are seeing a big drop in organizations at level 1, only 5% now compared to 20% in 2023. We also asked participants about their goal level of maturity, and we're seeing higher aspirations compared to 2023. 64% are striving for a higher level than their current level. 45% are striving for level 5, the highest level. And that's nearly double the 25% aspiring to level 5 in 2023. So for you and your organization, think about where you are now and where you aspire to be with your content operations as you're planning for 2026 and beyond. We also took a look, as we always do, at whether content ops maturity has an impact on success. And we continue to see a strong correlation. For instance, 80% of the extremely successful and nearly 70% of the very successful operate at levels 4 and 5. So this is one of many proof points that content ops maturity matters. Chris, could you share a bit about how one of the participants views the value of content ops?
Yes, we like how Stephen Pritt at Thomson Reuters views content operations as crucial. He notes, as AI continues to evolve, effective content operations are becoming increasingly important. They not only streamline the content creation process, but allow us to maintain control over our narrative, ensuring that our messaging is coherent and resonates with our target audience across all channels. Content operations should be the backbone of modern content teams as they integrate our platforms, technology stack, and AI to work seamlessly together. So Stephen mentions very specific ways content operations benefit Thomson Reuters. Consider what specific benefits or potential benefits are to your organization. Now let's shift from why mature content operations to how to do it.
Yeah, so we're going to hit the highlights of top success factors, starting with content vision and strategy. As a quick definition, content vision is the desired future state, and content strategy is a high-level plan to move from the current state to the future state. And what we found is that more participants report having a content vision than in the past, but they're also reporting more challenges with communicating about the vision. So this goes to show that it isn't enough to define the vision and let it sit on the shelf. You have to invest time and effort in communicating it. So Chris, could you share a bit more evidence about why content vision matters?
Yes, we also checked out how the presence of content vision correlates with content ops maturity, as you see on the left here, with success, as you see on the right. There's no question that organizations with a content vision are more likely to have a more mature content ops and report higher levels of success. Additionally, we found that organizations operating at high levels of maturity and success are much more likely to report a lack of strategy as a challenge. Back to you, Colleen.
Excellent. All right. So I think on this last one, we're much less likely to report lack of strategy as a challenge. I know that's a little bit of a tongue twister. So if you have content vision in place, you're more likely to have content strategy in place and not have that be a challenge as well. So Elizabeth Mendez, Associate Dean at Emory Rollins School of Public Health, explains why vision and strategy are more important to content ops than ever. She notes that in an era where technology evolves faster than teams can adopt new tools, vision and strategy anchor content operations, and together they turn constant disruption into an opportunity to evolve with intention rather than react in chaos. So consider whether your organization has a strong foundation in content vision and strategy on which you can build content ops. Now let's turn to a different success factor, content measurement and intelligence. And a couple of quick definitions here. Content effectiveness is the ability of content to enable your customers or users to achieve goals, while at the same time achieving your organization's goals. And content intelligence represents the systems and software that transform content data and business data into actionable insights for both strategy and execution and tactics and good things like that. So what we found is that more organizations are measuring than in the past, but it's still only 50% of organizations. Half are still struggling with content measurement. Chris, could you share a little bit more about why?
Yes, the reasons why are a little different now than in the past. Lack of time, lack of tools, vague objectives, and lack of training are challenges reported almost equally. In 2023, vague objectives was far and away the top challenge to measuring content effectiveness. We also checked out whether having content measurement and intelligence correlates with content ops maturity or success. And the answer is yes on both counts. Organizations that are measuring are more likely to have mature content operations and to report higher levels of success. Colleen, could you share more about these organizations?
Absolutely. We also found that organizations with content measurement and intelligence are more likely to have useful reporting, comprehensive processes, visibility into where content assets are, clear communication across silos, and effective standards and procedures. And if you think about this, it makes a lot of sense. For example, it's really hard to measure content in a meaningful way if you don't know where all of the content for your organization is. And that might sound a little bit silly, but it's actually a big problem in large organizations or organizations that are trying to scale. We also found something else interesting, and that's that only organizations at the highest levels of maturity and success measure ROI. As you can see here, most are at levels 4 and 5. We really like this advice from Mike Hales of EE here. He says, having your elevator pitch on the value of your content is absolutely crucial. State it in the terms your business uses: costs saved for service, conversions for marketing and sales, and so on. It serves as your trump card in conversations about priority, and it also will help in those political conversations about why do we care about this content. So, Chris, could you take us into the next success factor?
Yes, now let's talk about AI and content technology. We know that there's some general reports out there about the state of AI, such as from McKinsey and MIT. We really focused on the impact of AI and content operations and vice versa. To start, what we found is a huge uptick in using AI compared to 2023, and nearly 20% of participants report that AI is central to their content approach. And we asked about the use cases for AI, and content creation is far and away the most common use case, as you can see here. This is more than double the 36% that was reported in 2023. So that might be what you expect. What might surprise you is organizations at higher levels of content ops maturity and success are less likely to focus on AI for content creation. For instance, only 32% at maturity level 5 report content creation as a use case, and only 40% with extreme success report content creation as a use case. We also asked participants about specific examples of success with AI. Colleen, could you shed more light on those?
Sure. Participants reported a wide range of early successes with AI. This is only a small sample of what's in the report. The successes range from what you might expect, like creating drafts faster and at a higher level of quality, to what you might not expect, like using AI as a lever to drive more process and better process. We also asked about the specific tools and technologies organizations are using. Most participants report using AI features integrated into tools they're already using. Out of the AI-specific products, participants most frequently report using OpenAI products like ChatGPT. A significant percentage report using an in-house or homegrown solution built on a major AI model. And the other answers include signing up for new products with AI features and without necessarily an affiliation with those major AI models like OpenAI. I think we'll see more of that as AI has triggered a wave of innovation in content technology and tools, and that's super, super exciting. Now, one benefit of all this attention to AI is more stakeholders are becoming aware of just how complex effective content is, especially at scale. And we like how Laura Barnes of Red Hat articulates this opportunity. She says, I'm finding that more folks who are new to this, the more they are learning about quality effective content. I also find they don't want to do it alone. They always call us in to help. They realize they need an expert to guide them. So consider how this opportunity to be the expert guide applies to your organization's AI situation. Now, it's one thing to pilot or experiment with using AI. It's another thing to actually scale it. So that is something we asked about. We asked about scaling AI. Chris, could you share some of what we discovered?
Sure, Colleen. We found overall that many organizations are struggling to scale. Slightly less than a third of participants report moderate or fast progress. Most of the rest are seeing slow or stalled progress. Now, we took a look at whether content operations maturity plays a part in scaling AI, and we found a connection. Organizations operating at high levels of content ops maturity are more likely to report moderate or fast progress. We also found such organizations are more likely to have prepared to scale by taking steps like addressing workflow, standards and models, documentation for regulation, and governance. So AI might be an area your organization is experimenting with, and our report includes guidance on that. Colleen, could you share a sample?
Sure. This is a sample of guidance available throughout the full report. So throughout, we've got some little insets like this with some commentary. And we wanted to call this out and share this particular commentary because so many organizations are kind of stuck in their approach to AI or just figuring out what's next. And it's a great time to get strategic and reconsider your options. So these are 4 important types. First, reconsider the use cases. Your organization might not be ready for content creation as a use case right now. And content creation can be super risky as a use case if your organization isn't ready. So consider what other use cases can benefit instead. Laura Barnes, who we just heard from at Red Hat, for example, focused her team initially on using AI to enhance metadata, and it worked really, really well. Second, reconsider building the AI approach, buying it, or a combination. MIT has found that enterprises trying to build their own solution are more likely to fail than those that are buying. Third, if you are building, consider your approach to the language model. For example, AT&T initially used the large language model GPT-4 to categorize customer service calls and ultimately help prevent customers from churning. And while that approach saved around 50,000 customers, it was also expensive and required extensive maintenance. So AT&T shifted to using a combination of small open source models such as H2O.ai. Not only does the new approach maintain high accuracy, but it works faster and at 35% of the cost with GPT-4. I imagine, my hunch is that the environmental resource or the environmental impact because of the resources used also is much smaller with that approach. And finally, reconsider the approach to ROI. MIT recently found that 95% of enterprises are struggling to see ROI from AI. And we believe that's because most organizations are focused too narrowly on productivity. Plus, many organizations haven't been measuring the impact of content, so they don't have a clear benchmark. So minor or vague productivity improvements will not justify the cost, time, and resources to implement AI at scale. It's time to get more strategic about that. Now, let's touch on one last success factor: content process and governance. As a quick definition, we consider content governance to be the practice of keeping content aligned with standards, policies, and more to ensure its quality and effectiveness. One area we looked at is governance techniques, and those techniques range from ad hoc meetings to a center of content excellence. And compared to our 2023 update, we're seeing a big uptick in using some kind of governance. As you can see here, the most frequent technique is the least formal one, ad hoc meetings. So Chris, could you share a little bit more about what we discovered with governance?
Yes, we took a closer look at what the more mature organizations are doing, and they're clearly using more formal techniques as well as a combination of techniques. One technique we'd like to see used more is tailoring technology to help automate governance. As Rafael Carranza of PitchBook says, workflow automation offers powerful opportunities to safeguard content quality and enforce standards, such as automating freshness checks and triggering audit processes. One more area of insight we'd like to touch on is challenges. Colleen, could you delve more into that?
Absolutely. So participants reported some new challenges to maturing content operations that we haven't necessarily seen in the past. For the first time, participants report not enough staff or support, as well as rapid change as top challenges. You can see them as number one, kind of the first yellow bar all the way to the left, and number three, the purple bar. And our interviews confirmed a set of interrelated causes such as reorganization, changes in leadership, AI and technology disruption, business model changes, regulatory changes, product shifts, and layoffs. And also heard a lot about all of this kind of happening at the same time. We're also seeing top challenges from the past persist in this study, such as problems aligning or integrating content strategies, especially in enterprises, and no direct measurement of content effectiveness.
We also asked participants to rate their level of agreement with a range of statements. And they disagree the most with the statements you can see along the bottom here, ranging from siloed communications to useful reporting to tools and processes. These statements tend to be about organizational support and integration, not team dynamics. So large and growing organizations are trying to operate and scale content in a time of high disruption and inadvertently making it harder, not easier. One way to address this situation is to consider resilience. How do you bring resilience into your content operations so they can handle change and scale? We like the way that Leilani Prevost of ServiceNow talks about this opportunity. She says, living near fault lines can teach you a lot about staying steady. It's a lesson I carry into how I think about change management and leadership today. When AI shakes things up, managers are the shock absorbers. They use empathy to steady their teams by turning anxiety into energy and keeping everyone moving forward.
Thank you, Chris. Leilani's advice is certainly inspiring. And to help you keep your teams and organizations moving forward the way Leilani is saying, we are making this full report available. It's 95 pages. It has much, much more in terms of insights, commentary, quotes, examples, and planning tools. And as Scott mentioned, he's made it available in the links available to you here on Bright Talk. So we've been really excited to hit a lot of the highlights from our latest research. And Scott, we're happy to answer any questions that you're seeing.
Excellent. I guess I have a question for you, which is, what do you think the organizations who are starting to explore content operations are getting right?
I think they're getting right a few different things. One is the fact that technology can help. They're looking to technology that they're considering, whether it's a CMS, whether it's, looking at using AI, whether it's, tools that explicitly help with content operations. They're looking to them more, have higher expectations of the technology. And I think that's absolutely the right track to go on. There's so much that technology can do to help with, in combination with AI, handling and scaling content operations. So that's one thing that's right. I think the ones who are able to get going a little bit faster and have more momentum do have that vision and strategy in place, and kind of start with that along with an assessment of where they're currently at with content operations. And it's not unusual to actually have a vision and strategy entirely focused on what's going on behind the scenes, in addition to the vision for what you want to happen with content for customers. Folks who are coming at this from more of like a user experience perspective, or maybe even a marketing perspective, tend to default to, okay, this is the vision, the strategy for what we want to happen to customers, but you also need to factor in, what do we want this to be like for, the authors, the users, the engineers, the product owners, the people behind the scenes, and what do we really need to have in place to sustain and scale what we want to make happen for customers. So those are a couple of things that organizations who are kind of starting to get it right and starting to carry more momentum are doing.
Interesting. I'm going to put us back on the screen now so everybody can see us when we're talking to each other. So I have a question for you about, I guess, your history of tracking content operations maturity over the last few years. What surprised you the most in the latest update that you're producing the report? In other words, what did any assumptions that you have get challenged? Did you learn anything that was surprising?
Yeah, I think we were excited about, the promising shift to more maturity, but at the same time, a little surprised that there wasn't more progress. And then everything that we, delved into around AI is completely new. We didn't really know what to expect. And leading into this update, we're keeping tabs on what MIT and other organizations who are reporting on the state of AI or, progress with AI, what they're saying. And that made us really curious about, was our research going to kind of be in line with that or be very different? And, after going through this research and, keeping tabs on what others are saying, I think any leader in any organization has a very, very clear picture of, both the fact that AI within an enterprise is struggling, the adoption is wrought with challenges, and thanks to our research, a super clear connection to content operations maturity. That, I can't say it was a surprise because we certainly had that sense based on our direct experience working with clients, but it was really exciting to confirm, and it's exciting to share here now.
Do you think that it dawned on me that most of the work that we've done trying to improve the way that companies produce and deliver information has been about the customer, or about trying to get the information to the customer in some kind of way that's meaningful, right? To convert them, to educate them, to inform them, whatever it is. But now content operations is really about the whole ball of wax, which means you had said earlier about internal stakeholders. What about the people who are the authors? What about the people who are the setup people, the delivery people, the taxonomists, everybody who works on it? They need to have their work operationalized in order for this chain to work. Is this something that companies are aware of, or do you think that the awareness that it's about the internal audience just as much as is the external audience is a new thing for them?
I think it's very new, and at the same time, I'm seeing more growing awareness that, as you said, operationalizing all the different aspects of what goes on behind the scenes related to content needs to happen. And we're seeing more inquiries for help with content operations and everything that goes into it. Hearing things like, we need help with our operating model, we need help maturing our content operations, various terms being used for it. But compared to 2023, we're absolutely seeing more awareness. I also really like, in terms of kind of explaining why this really becomes a big deal with implementing AI. I really like the GAS framework that researchers from Georgia Tech and Duke have articulated really well in a recent paper as being applicable. So that framework is essentially a triad, if you will, of generality, accuracy, and simplicity. And, typically with any kind of technology or system, you can do really well in one of those, maybe two of those, not all three of those at the same time. And AI is really interesting in that it seems very simple to individuals, and it applies, especially something like Chat GPT, that is very broadly applicable. It seems to apply to everything. And, compared to how much it's applied to, it's relatively accurate. So on the surface, that seems like, oh, wow, we could just deploy this everywhere in the enterprise and we'll be good to go. But actually, there's a whole lot of complexity behind the scenes. And a lot of that complexity, we believe, is content operations, the way content needs to be handled. And AI actually kind of shifts the complexity. If you want to automate more and more, or just accelerate more and more within what happens with content operations, you've really got to have your ducks in a row with figuring out, documenting workflow. You really need the expertise of content professionals to figure out how all this needs to be set up and work together. And yet a lot of organizations have a lot of ad hoc, offline, sort of tacit knowledge about content that they weren't aware of before. And so, I think the organizations that are really going to win with AI are the ones who manage and handle this complexity, largely content operations complexity, in a very strategic and smart way.
Christopher, what could you tell us about the audience profile for the report? One of our viewers wants to know if it was mainly focused on the United States, or did you have participants from other countries that also shared their data with you?
Yes, the majority of the respondents were in the United States, but we had people from all over, from Austria, Netherlands, Kenya, India, Canada, Ukraine. So a good variety globally, but the majority of the participants were in the U.S.
And were they mostly larger organizations, or did you have kind of a mixed bag of participants in the survey?
It was a mix, and I can find that that number. Give me one.
That's okay.
Second. Yeah. It was a good mix. Yeah, we did have a good mix of combination of larger organizations.
Great.
Yeah, I think it was about 60% enterprises. So
that's right.
Okay.
More than half enterprises.
Colleen, when you talk about a promising shift to more mature content operations, what does that shift look like in real terms? In other words, what behaviors or patterns define this shift that you're seeing?
Yeah, so the promising shift to more mature content operations, really about a combination of recognizing the value or importance of content operations. This is a thing we actually need to have in our organization, as well as establishing the success factors that we talked about: vision and strategy, process and governance, looking at how technology can help, measurement intelligence, and so on. And one, useful way to make this happen for an enterprise we're seeing is a center of content excellence. And that's kind of a hub that really can be a great mechanism for content operations. It's something that has worked really well, for example, at Thomson Reuters. And that's, a situation where we have a huge scale, global, lots of different markets, lots of different products and solutions. How do you bring some alignment and order and efficiency to the approach of content for all of those situations and customers? And so it's something that we didn't see a lot of organizations saying that they were doing, but it did tend to correlate with the more mature and successful organizations have something like that in place. So I'm really excited about that shift, organizations who want to start making that shift even more. I'm excited about the possibility for Center of Content Excellence to really make it easier and faster. So that's definitely one way to kind of make the shift move a little bit more efficiently.
Excellent. One of my questions would be, because I helped you share this information with other folks, that means that probably some technical documentation teams responded, or somebody from one of those teams might have responded to your survey. Did you see any evidence in your research that of the respondents that gave you information that their technical documentation teams were trying to operationalize their content production capabilities?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely had technical documentation and product content leaders and executives in the mix. Lilani, for example, who we shared a quote from, is one of them. And content operations is a big point of interest just because it's always important to have effective technical documentation, product content, but we're also seeing organizations recognize that they need more alignment across all of the types of content that come into play in the customer experience. So, technical content, documentation, product content, that needs to work well with marketing content. And in a recent conversation with Laura Barnes at Red Hat, for example, she mentioned that content operations is kind of the love language between those kind of major types or purposes of content. So, marketing content, technical documentation, product content, they both need to have content operations. They can speak content operations to each other and get it. And I'm really excited about content operations being a mechanism for bridging silos, having more of an integrated approach, especially, in a large organization or an enterprise.
Here's kind of a technical question. I think it's maybe not inside of your research, but I would imagine you have some thoughts on it. So one viewer asked, when building the actual content, is it best to include the meta tags with the content? And how does this potentially impact sellers that will actually use the document rather than just questioning or prompting for answers against the content with an AI system?
Interesting. Yeah, I think that including the metadata is huge. Gaps in metadata, big problem. A big hindrance to organizations that reported they weren't seeing AI success or weren't making progress, reason for slowing down or getting delayed. So, having the metadata, really clean, including it up front. I'm not sure if this person's like getting started or trying to fix an existing process, but absolutely doing that will serve that organization very, very well. And the exciting thing is AI and other technology can help with doing that and maintaining it. If you are one of those organizations that maybe is in a situation of content debt and a bit overwhelmed over how are we going to clean up this metadata situation, tools and technology can help with that now. It's super, super exciting. So it is realistic to resolve that kind of debt or, problems with metadata and get to a really good place to where your content is much more AI friendly.
I think that makes a lot of sense. In my experience working with technical documentation teams in particular, we used metadata primarily to enable a capability called single source multi-channel publishing. And so the metadata was there so that we could push some content to a PDF, but not some content that's the same to a different, output channel. And so we weren't really taking advantage of the semantic enhancements of things like product names, places, people, nouns, just things like that would help the system differentiate something that has the same name. For example, there's a software company that makes a CCMS that's called Magnolia, right? There's also a plant called Magnolia. Oh, I'm sorry, there are two. One is a tree, one is a shrub. They both have a flower called Magnolia. You might have them in your yard on Magnolia Court. You might be named Magnolia Johnson. And then all these magnolias are in what, you see what I mean? Like, I think that the people who were using metadata weren't thinking about that, solving that problem. And now here we are with a system that wants that input so it can differentiate and give us the best answer. So it seems like this is a great segue for us to say, if you're using metadata already, this just means you can deploy it in more strategic ways. It won't always have to be to delineate the content in each output format, but it may be to help an LLM provide the right answers and create a knowledge graph for you to avoid hallucination possibilities. Do you feel like that's a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is crucial to kind of the governance and ensuring accuracy when you're looking at leveraging AI to help create content, for sure. It's also important to content measurement and intelligence, and being able to leverage AI. This is another potential use case for anyone looking to infuse AI more into their content operations. Content measurement and intelligence, having metadata in place for content helps tremendously with getting useful insights and reporting about content. And, if you know, say what aspects, characteristics, attributes, substance of your content performs best with these types of customers in this particular market, and you can get that quickly or just have it reported to you on an ongoing basis, then you can make both more tactical, optimization decisions. How do we, make this perform even better, as well as more quickly get to a strategy. If you're looking at, say, developing new content for a new product for those same customers, you can quickly understand, well, let's look at what was effective in the past and how we might be able to apply that to this new strategy. So metadata, crucial for so many things with being successful with content and AI.
Would it be fair to say that maybe the one word description we're looking for is precision? Because if we want to avoid hallucinations, then we want to have more precise answers. And in order to do that, we need metadata that is precise. It cannot be a chunk and say, oh, this is a product description paragraph. Yes, we know it's a paragraph.
Yeah.
But what is the paragraph and why is it there? And who is it for? And is it for everybody? And is it in the same language that everybody needs? And I think that metadata discussion is something that we skip over. We say, oh, metadata is data about data. And then people go, what? I don't know what that means. So I feel like this is like a maturity area that's going to grow. People's experience. Yeah. What can I do with metadata? I had a client who said, we added metadata, and then all of a sudden we discovered we could sort our own content. We could say, go find all these things that include this product name that are in France that are not able to be sold because of some regulation, right? Because they have all this metadata that tells them that. Make a list of those things, prioritize them by the popularity or how many times people ask questions about them in our documentation. And all of a sudden, their documentation metadata was serving as a query engine. You can ask questions of your content and then learn what's missing or what can be improved. And that's never what we thought about when we did multi-channel publishing. We weren't trying to solve that problem. Christopher, I see you nodding your head. Do you agree with that?
I do. I agree with you. I'm just enjoying your commentary on that. I think it rings so true with the clients that we interact with as well. So.
Excellent. Well, let's take two more questions really quickly. One of them is, there's actually two questions in this one person's question, so there are three questions. The first is a little bit of context. So you mentioned earlier that some organizations have trouble identifying the precise value of the content they produce. So the questions are, is this purely a measurement problem, i.e. a problem attributing value through SEO, for example, or is it due to the murky content strategy at the enterprise level that doesn't appreciate why content is being deployed in the first place?
Yes. So there is a strong correlation. We didn't necessarily share it in the presentation, but we've seen repeatedly a strong correlation between having a clear strategy and having more effective, successful measurement. So, the connection might not seem obvious at first to a lot of people, but it is, hey, if you know what you're trying to do, then you can more easily decide what's important to measure. And then you can focus your reporting. It's much easier to actually execute and implement reporting, or maybe an entire system of content intelligence to help you understand whether you're making progress in executing that strategy. So yeah, I do think it is everything that that person said in the question. They are very related.
Lovely. And the second question that person wanted me to ask you was, do you think that AI could lend clarity in the absence of a decisive content strategy? I'm almost thinking that might have to be a whole show on its own. What do you think?
So I'm just thinking of that in context of the first question. So add clarity for an organization.
If you don't have a content strategy, the question sometimes is, can't AI just do everything?
Oh, right. Yeah.
The content strategy issue was immature at the time when, and each team said, oh, we need a content strategy apparently. And then there was 20 content strategies, right?
Yeah. So this goes back to one of the examples of AI success that we shared that was maybe not intuitive, which is using AI as a lever to improve process. And so, we heard a couple of examples of, okay, so, X stakeholder, you want to look at using AI for, this product content or, this product marketing content or whatever the case might be. In order to do that, we need, things that actually equate to a strategy. So they're backing their stakeholders into defining a strategy, and kind of the carrot, if you will, is we'll use AI for this if we get this defined. But to use AI, we need to define these things, which is essentially a strategy.
I was going to say, I think you could use the AI systems to help you think about your strategy, to ask questions of your strategy, to say what might be missing from the strategy. There's so much that's been written about content strategy that is difficult for us to find, but an LLM may have been trained on it. But before we jump out of here, because there's one more question, I wanted to see if I could tackle this one. When creating content to be used by, they ask sales organizations, I'm going to say by any organization, is it best to chunk the content into smaller segments rather than produce one large document? And anybody that's watching this show that knows me is probably giggling right now. No,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, generally, it's better to chunk into smaller pieces and then have the flexibility to use those pieces on their own in particular channels, or to bring them together in a larger piece. But I will say, and Scott, you might not agree with this or like this, you need to be really intentional and smart in the approach to figuring out what those pieces need to be. In other words, we're modeling content. We're figuring out at what level of granularity we need that content to be.
That's the word, granularity.
Because you definitely can get too granular. And then if you do that at scale, you create a lot of maintenance issues. And don't get, the full value out of having those different pieces that you could. So, but yes, Scott, welcome your thoughts on that too.
I say as small as you need to. If your company has one letter and that's the company name, and you would like your company name to be a variable, and you want to be able to write it once and change it everywhere in case you change your company name and you just want to change it in one place, it changes everywhere, that would be a smart use. Do you want to go granular on every single word and sentence? Oh, no. But I think Ann Rockley had a good way of thinking about it. If you repurpose content twice, you copy and paste it. If you're going to do it 3, 5, 15, 100,000 times, you should probably systematically develop a way to repurpose that. And that would be identifying the pieces that would be appropriate for that, and helping the system understand with the metadata why you would like to use it in certain instances and why not. So it can do if this, then that piece of content. Yeah, but I agree 100%. All right,
Awesome.
that's going to be the end of the show because we're out of time. So I'm going to have to thank Heredo for being here today as the sponsor. You can learn more about them on the web at heredo.com. And both of you for being here. I really appreciate it. Audience members, if you would do me a favor and click the rate button, which is, or vote maybe is what it's called, just below your webinar viewing panel, to let both of our presenters know what you thought about the information that they provided today during our session. It would be really appreciated. 1 is a low rating, 5 is an exceptional one. There's also a field into which you can type some feedback, and I appreciate that. We share it with our presenters, and we also read all your comments to try to make our shows better. All right, so you've been watching Content Operations in the Age of Artificial Intelligence with Colleen and Christopher Jones. Thanks for joining us today. As always, be safe, be well, keep doing great work. We'll see you again on another Content Wrangler webinar in the near future. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.